Finding Home by Sapphire. Chapter 6. To Trust. Stepping into a deserted corridor, Tony waited impatiently for his call to go through. 5 rings went by, and he was just about to hang up when the line connected. Tony, something wrong? Tony didn't quite know what to say for a moment. As crazy as it sounded, he had honestly expected Harry to not be at home. After all, the lilies. Tony! Tony jolted back into the present. Well, I just wanted to know how you were doing. 3 in the morning. Oh, is it 3? Tony glanced at his watch. So it is. How are you? Fine, came the wry reply. How do you? Tired, hungry, and I need more coffee, Tony rambled. Fury's going dictator on our butts, and Coulson's as creepy as ever. I mean, does that guy ever need to sleep? Every time I even think about taking a break, he shows up and goes all, "Are you finished yet, Mr. Stark?" And I say, "Do I look like a genius on steroids?" No. And he goes, "Keep it up, Mr. Stark. You may not be on steroids, but you're certainly a genius." And I say, "Well, thanks, Agent. Mind telling the doctor that even Gina needs sleep?" And he goes, "Sorry, Mr. Stark. The director has given everyone orders to dump you into the Atlantic Ocean if you start slacking off. I'm just here to make sure that doesn't happen." And I say, "Well, that's very kind of you." And note the sarcasm in my words? Yeah, everybody and their grandma could hear it, but Coulson just smiles that creepy smile of his and says, "Not a problem, Mr. Stark. Keep up the good work." And then he leaves me to do my thing like I haven't been awake for the last 72 hours straight. He drew in a deep breath after he finished his rant and couldn't help huffing in mock offense as Harry deadpanned. "Since you've reached the 24/7 hotline for complaints and general grievances and have yet to use up your minutes per call, we would love to hear about anything else in your life that you have found fault in." Very funny, Tony grumbled good-naturedly, already feeling better after Harry's usual dry wit. But seriously, I wish I was home. I wouldn't have gotten out of bed if I had known it would be this hard to return to it. "The faster you wrap up whatever it is you're doing, the sooner you'll get to sleep," Harry told him unhelpfully. "But look, if you're really that tired, you're at some military base, right? Override the system or something and lock the door. You can get some shut-eye that way." That sounds like a wonderful plan. Tony sighed, running a hand through his hair before tugging at his loosened collar. He had long since ditched his tie. Unfortunately, Bruce, Dr. Banner, he's here as well, is still going strong, and the guy's a peace lover if I've ever seen one. I think I'd actually feel guilty if I left him to do the work all by himself, because he started offering to do that after Coulson's 3rd visit. "Sounds like a good man," Harry offered. "Have you asked him to go to Stark Industries after this whole fiasco?" "I have." Tony made a face. "And let me tell you, the guy's self-esteem issues have self-esteem issues. It didn't help that the American Capsicle kept telling me to leave him alone. Honestly, how does he think that'll help? A guy can't be left alone for the rest of his life." There was a thick silence on the other end, and Tony stiffened, a sudden sense of foreboding twisting his gut. "Harry?" "I agree." Harry's light tone seemed forced to Tony's ears. "Definitely. Bring him back to Stark Industries. You'll be good for him, Tony." "Yeah," Tony agreed before trailing off. "Are you okay?" "Fine," came the prompt response. "You should probably get back to work. Talk later." Right. Tony frowned worriedly but let it go for now. He'd get it out of the mechanic once he wrapped this crazy mess up. I'll call you later." It wasn't until Tony hung up and was halfway back to the lab he and Bruce were using that something hit him. Several somethings. Figuratively, of course, but the impact was staggeringly similar to being hit by a freight train while salsa dancing in your birthday suit on the train tracks, and all the while not realizing you were actually there until it was too late. Embarrassing, fast, and so out of the blue that you couldn't believe you missed it before. The lilies! He had smelled them, and it couldn't be perfume or, hell, even cologne, because agents on duty weren't allowed to wear them. And Thor had said, clearly, that someone had protected him, had knocked the hammer aside, and Tony could believe that because he just didn't think the demigod could miss at that distance. There was only one person out there that he really believed could and would come to his aid no matter where he was. And Jarvis. Oh, Jarvis. His own AI had questioned whether Harry needed protecting, and that really should have been his first clue. Jarvis had told him it had scanned Harry's house, but Tony had asked the wrong question. Instead of, is Harry at his house? He had asked, is he alright? Jarvis had answered with an affirmative, but that didn't mean Harry was at home. It just meant... A moment later, Tony was full out sprinting back down the corridor, flying past startled agents with a single-minded intensity. Oh, it was stupid! So stupid! He had installed part of Jarvis's mainframe into Harry's house himself! Jarvis! He burst into the room where his suit was held, activating his AI's verbal speech system. Did you reroute my call to Harry's house back to his cell? Jarvis was silent for a heartbeat longer than necessary, and Tony had his answer. So... Which call? Save it, Jarvis! Tony growled. Yes or no? Affirmative, sir. The AI finally admitted, almost nervously. Tony closed his eyes and stumbled into the nearest chair. Where is he? He finally asked. Sir, just please tell me he's not still in Germany, Tony said tersely. Or if he is, tell me now so I can go hijack a jet. He is no longer in Germany. Well, thank God for that. Tony pinched the bridge of his nose. Now, what's going on? Since when did you go behind my back like this? Mr. Potter knows more about the situation than you did when you left, Jarvis began. He arrived at Stock Industries shortly after you departed, and I thought it prudent to help him as much as possible when he revealed his intentions to come after you. He did not wish for you to know, so I simply refrained from notifying you of his presence. Rest assured, he is not a danger to you. I know that, Tony snapped. I'm not worried about me. I'm worried about him. This is S.H.I.E.L.D. God knows Fury would love a clairvoyant or whatever Harry is in his arsenal. No offense to him, but he's got tunnel vision when it comes to every big disaster on Earth. Is Harry actually here? At the base? Indeed. How is that even possible? How did he get here? My apologies, sir, but that I cannot say. I gave my word to Mr. Potter. Wonderful. Tony rose to his feet and pulled out his phone, quickly dialing Harry's cell. My AI has integrity. If I may say, sir, Jarvis pointed out politely, I am only what you programmed me to be. Yeah. Tony waved a hand as he pressed his cell to his ear again, while he still felt a sting of annoyance at the fact that Jarvis had kept something so important from him. It was dulled by the fact that at least it was Harry the AI was working with. For future reference, you can help Harry to your electronic heart's content, but not telling me about something again that could potentially hurt him in the long run, and I'll dismantle you myself. Unfortunately, he was only half joking, and Jarvis had the good sense to promise him that much. What? No, Tony. If you're calling about a sudden midlife crisis or something, so help me, I will help you end it in a very unpleasant way. Tony's grip on his cell tightened. Yeah, you could say I'm having a bit of a crisis. Let's start with a near heart attack I had a minute ago when I found out, surprise, surprise, my best friend's on the military aircraft with me. Silence reigned on the other end of the line, and Tony almost started lecturing. Lecturing! Again, when Harry said resignedly, Jarvis told you. Yeah! Tony collapsed into the chair again, heaving a sigh. Harry, why did you follow me? I had to keep you safe, Harry said, voice suddenly so small that Tony almost missed it. One egotistical bastard who doesn't know when to back off, and it's your goddamn fault for pushing into my life like it did. I made it clear in the beginning that I wanted you to leave me alone, didn't I? I didn't want you around, but you just kept coming back, and you wouldn't leave. So unfortunately, you're one of the only friends I have now. The only friend I have in all of America, and I'll be damned before I let you walk into some war alone. Tony wanted to be mad. He really did. Harry had worried him and followed him without telling him first, but he just couldn't help the stupid grin now pasted on his face. Not once had Harry ever admitted so candidly that Tony was important to him, and it was a refreshing change from all the people who liked him for his money and position that he had to deal with at work every day. Really? Tony couldn't quite hide the smug note that crept into his voice, and he could all but hear Harry roll his eyes. Yes, really, you self-centered ass. Harry snapped back. Now, are we finished with this conversation yet? No, Tony immediately took a sharp turn into Seriousville. Where are you? You do realize getting caught here is a very bad idea? And how did you get here in the first place? There was a long pause, and Tony picked up a soft sigh before his head snapped around as the door slid open and Harry stepped in, simultaneously closing his phone. Harry! Tony leapt to his feet again, stowing his phone away and automatically checking for injury on the mechanic's person. Harry looked tired, like no sleep for 72 hours tired. And Tony silently berated himself as he realized that stowaways didn't even get an uncomfortable lab chair to catch a few winks in, nor did they get food of any kind. Crap, look, I'll go get you some No need. I'm really just a bit tired. Harry gave him a rare smile. Thor got me something to eat. Thor! Tony repeated, not sure if he should feel confused or hurt. You went to Thor? As in, demigod with a hammer, happy arm, and a crazy half-brother, Thor? Harry glanced down before gently maneuvering Tony back into his seat before grabbing a chair for himself. The billionaire softened when Harry couldn't seem to meet his gaze, and he quickly said, Look, if you trust Thor to help you, more than me, but I know I haven't exactly had a lot of free time on my hands. Tony, then I think it's fine that you went to him. Tony, it's good that someone's looking out for you here. Tony! Tony fell silent when Harry pinned him with a pointed glare. If you shut up for a second, then you know I didn't go to Thor for help, Harry said irritably. Just shut up for a minute, okay? Tony blinked, and for the first time since meeting him, he could see a hint of fear clouding Harry's expression. He wanted to reassure him that there wasn't anything in the world that Harry had to fear from him, but the mechanic seemed to be using the momentary silence to pull himself together, so Tony stayed quiet. Here. Harry finally spoke, pulling out a silvery material that turned out to be a cloak. That's mostly how I've been getting around without being seen. Tony slowly took the cloak, catching a whiff of lilies as he studied the silky fabric. What? Put it on, Harry said quietly. The cloak seemed to automatically lengthen to fit him as Tony tugged it around his shoulders and pulled up the hood. Feeling a little awkward, he glanced back at Harry, who nodded at the nearest wall. Turning, Tony found himself staring at his reflection on the metal surface, except there was no reflection! Stunned, he drew closer to the wall before sticking out a hand from the cloak. Immediately, his reflection's hand appeared as well, but that was it. He pulled down the hood and found his floating head staring back at him, looking just as startled as he felt. Whirling around, his gaze fell on Harry, who was now staring back at him with very weary eyes. He seemed almost defeated, and Tony, for the life of him, couldn't see why. Harry, this is amazing! He exclaimed, bounding back over to the mechanic. How did you make it? Is this carbon nanotube tech? I've never seen it incorporated like this. Tony. And Tony stopped talking at once because he had never heard Harry use that tone of voice before, stuck somewhere between hurt and lonely resignation, and Tony just really, really wanted to make it go away. It's not technology, Harry continued, gaze wary in a way that reminded Tony of the first 2 months they had known each other, as if the mechanic expected him to leave without a moment's notice. It had been a large part of the reason Tony had done exactly the opposite. It's not even science. It's just magic. The silence that fell over them was near suffocating as Tony tried to wrap his mind around this. Magic? Did Harry mean that whatever made this was a lot like magic? Or magic? Tony probed tentatively, being very careful to keep any disbelief out of his voice. Harry didn't seem to notice the effort already pushing Tony away, even as both remained seated. With a tilt of his head and slight twitch of his index finger, Tony's cell flew from his pocket and into Harry's hand. In amazed disbelief, the billionaire watched his phone become a hedgehog plushie, which promptly started tap dancing across the table next to him when Harry flicked his finger again. Magic, Harry confirmed, expressionless. I'm a wizard. For a long minute, Tony could only stare blankly at the hedgehog before finally glancing back at the mechanic. A wizard. As someone who grew up around science, that was something he would never have come up with in a million years. But Harry was a wizard, and that, it seemed, made all the difference, because Harry didn't lie. Not about the important things, and rarely even in jest. Tony had learned after the mechanic had badly twisted his ankle one day, and had almost broken it trying to continue working. that Harry only ever lied when it came to his own well-being. He guessed that Harry must be a fairly powerful wizard because the mechanic was currently staring at his lap and the plushie was still tap dancing. At the back of his mind, a part of him really hoped Harry could change it back. He only had the one phone on him at the moment. Well, Harry finally broke the silence, still not looking at Tony. Tony studied the hunched shoulders and dulled eyes and did the only thing he could think of. Think you could magic up a cup of coffee for me then? It's been a long day and Fury's probably out for my blood by now. I'd rather suffer through another one of his sermons with coffee than without. And then Tony just grinned and leaned back to enjoy the open-mouthed surprise that spread across Harry's features, mentally congratulating himself on a job well done. You're not scared? Harry stammered, looking confused and cautiously hopeful, as if he wasn't quite ready to believe it yet. Harry, we're currently fighting against a psychopath with daddy issues and a power-hungry streak the size of Mexico, bent on world domination. Tony reached out, ignoring the slight flinch the movement received and silently promising retribution to whoever instilled that reaction if they weren't dead already. Instead, he ruffled the mechanic's hair teasingly before slipping a friendly arm around his shoulders in a familiar gesture. I'm not all that concerned about magic. Seriously, you worry about the most ridiculous things. It's not ridiculous! Harry scowled, but the expression was half-hearted and his shoulders had relaxed. Tony would count that as a win. So, tell me why Thor is helping you out, Tony said, still disgruntled about that, and then added as an afterthought, and please tell me you can turn that hedgehog back into my phone. Harry released a ragged laugh, sounding mostly relieved as he twitched a finger and returned Tony's phone. Thor can see through my cloak, Harry explained. I guess it's an Asgardian thing. He's the one who helped me slip in, and he's been sneaking me food for a while. Tony nodded thoughtfully. And you managed to follow us to Germany and back because? Harry shrugged. I flew. You flew, Tony repeated faintly before grinning widely again. That is awesome. He paused in thought before recalling it. You know, he called you my sentinel. He wiggled his eyebrows at the mechanic. You're my protector now, Harry. My own personal knight in shining armor. Harry snorted, and Tony pretended not to notice the quick swipe of the mechanic's arms over his eyes. Honestly, to be worried about something like that, he really should be offended. Hadn't he shown how good a friend he was by now? I'm not used to it. Harry was staring back at him, obviously guessing what he was thinking. One of my best friends, he got jealous of me a lot because, well, I was a bit famous in my world, in the magical community back in Britain, and I come from a rich family, while he doesn't. He's always just a bit off when either of those things come up, so I suppose I'm used to people leaving for things out of my control. Doesn't sound like a very good friend, Tony said, voice harder than he had meant to sound. Harry quirked a sardonic smile at him. We parted ways a while ago. There's nothing to worry over anymore. Tony grunted. Well, I'm not going anywhere. Harry's expression became a little odd for a fraction of a second before it eased away like quicksilver. No, I suppose you're not. The sudden ring of Tony's phone suddenly split the air, and the billionaire made a face as he saw who it was. You have reached the life model decoy of Tony Stark, Tony intoned, smothering a grin when he got Harry's stifled laugh out of the corner of his eye. Please leave a message. Mr. Stark, where are you? Coulson frowned at him. In Honolulu, Tony said at once. Just return to the lab and continue your work. The cube is of utmost importance. Tell him my flight's been delayed, Tony said, still straight-faced. I won't be back until sometime tomorrow. Dr. Banner has been asking after you, Phil told him, and Tony scowled. He had forgotten about Lab Buddy. All right. I was just stretching my legs, Tony said. I'm coming back now. Good to hear. Coulson smiled pleasantly at him. The director has upgraded his threat to death by the nearest volcano. Just thought you should know. The agent hung up before Tony could get another word in. Tony rolled his eyes. Really? Death by volcano? Is that the best he can come up with? Harry just shook his head and rose to his feet, retrieving the cloak Tony had taken off. Have fun then? I rather doubt it. Tony looked hopefully at the silver cloak. You'll lend that to me later, right? I could have so much fun with it. This time Harry did laugh, a little hoarse from misuse, but genuine. Yeah, Tony, you can borrow it later. And you'll show me more magic? Tony pressed gleefully. Yes, Tony, Harry indulged before waving a hand. A moment later, 2 mugs of freshly brewed coffee appeared on the table just the way Tony loved it. And there's your... Hi! Ignoring the mechanic's protests, Tony gave him a tight hug before sweeping up the coffee. See you later, Harry. Gotta get back to work. And before Harry could threaten to throttle him, Tony ducked out of the room, highly satisfied and feeling very accomplished. All in all, it hadn't been a bad 3 in the morning conversation after all.